constant, never-ending improvement.
Improve yourself.
You can learn anything.
Want success? Model the best. Today, let's learn one of the most common rules that successful people follow. Improve yourself. Also, if you want a daily video every morning to help you build your confidence, check out my 254 series. The link is in the description below and it's free.
After you practice martial art, you develop this natural self-confidence. Not cockiness, but you develop this natural self-confidence.
You might want to get honest with yourself. Like, instead of doing this, I want to be a millionaire, I want to do this. Do you really? Because you can make it happen. You actually can. Look at all the idiots that are making money. You can make money.
It takes such a desperate, obsessive focus to excel on on the level that I want to make movies.
You can't have a standard education and expect to have an extraordinary life. It's not going to happen. The one breakthrough for all leaders is constant, never-ending improvement. And that means educating yourself and continuing to develop even greater emotional mastery, because that's what affects whether you execute or not. The opportunity for self-education is there. We have to change our psychology from, I'm going to do what everybody else does, and I'm mad because it doesn't work anymore, to the reality is this is the greatest time to be alive if you're growing, you're learning, you're educating, and you're developing valuable skills. So instead of complaining, you got to say, where are the skill sets valued in the marketplace? And how do I work harder on myself than anything else? Because if I become more valuable, then I will be able to give more, do more, and change more. When I interviewed Warren Buffett, I asked the most important investment he ever made in his life. You know what he said it was? I was thinking all the companies he'd done, you know. He said, Tony, go into Dale Carnegie. I said, what? He goes, because by developing myself, that's the most important investment. Those skill sets, learning how to persuade, learning how to speak, learning how to influence, all my ideas would have died on my lips if I hadn't been able to influence, and I learned it from that little course. Most valuable thing I ever did in my life, he said.
The concept of improving lives runs through the center of everything I do. And then I realized that the way to improve lives is to continually improve yourself. Right. So with that, every morning when I get out of the bed, you know, I haven't fixed everything in the world yet, so there's always something to do. And in this film, I read an interesting quote for the Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. He said that good people have to get out of the bed every day and try to empty the ocean with a ladle. Mm-hmm. Right? And I thought that was, you know, I knew that was profound, and I paused for a second and I said, all right, what the hell is a ladle? Right? Right? So then, you know, I touched it on my iPad, it's ladle. Oh, it's like a big spoon. Okay.
As we
it's
say,
like a
Philly.
soup spoon. Yeah. It's like a soup spoon. I was like, why do you use a soup spoon? So trying to empty the ocean with a soup spoon, you know, as the mentality of how you wake up every day to try to do good in the world. So for me, I'm really driven by continually trying to elevate my mind and elevate my spirit and care for my body, and to be able to love as many people as effectively as possible with this mystery of life that I've been given.
I gave a speech yesterday in Dallas. After the speech, it was a big audience of people in financial services. A guy dressed to the nines in like one of these super slick suits comes up to me. He says, hey, Mel, you know, really love the 5-second rule. Do you mind if I give you some feedback? Feedback? Don't you hate getting feedback? And then when people actually preface it by saying, can I give you some feedback? I don't know about you, but literally my butt's like, it just cannot stand it. I immediately go on edge. But here's the thing about feedback. You have to take it. You have to take it. It is critical. Critical. So I want to tell you, number one, what the guy said to me, my reaction, and then I want to give you my philosophy about feedback. Because what the guy said to me was so valuable, and it was also really hard for me to hear. Here I am after the speech. We're surrounded by a big group of people. He walks up to me and says, when it's his turn in the line, can I give you some feedback? I immediately tense up, and this is what he says. Mel, I love the concept of the 5-second rule. super cool idea, can't wait to try it. Okay, now comes the punch in the gut. He said, you called it stupid so many times during the speech, it was off-putting. Doesn't that sound terrible, that word? And he said, I could tell that you were doing it on purpose. He's right. In fact, you called it stupid so many times, and yet you have these insanely powerful examples of how people are using it. You came off as defensive. When he said this to me, I literally, you know how you feel like you're shrinking in life, where you're like standing and you're full size, and then all of a sudden somebody says something, you're like, I just want to disappear right now. And the reason why it was such a zinger is he was right. He was absolutely right. You see, I do call the 5-second rule stupid because I'm in front of so many analytical audiences. I'm in front of skeptics all the time. And so I use it as a preemptive way to disappear the biggest pushback on the 5-second rule, which is on its face. It sounds so stupid and so simple. There's no way it could be so powerful. The problem is I've gotten lazy and I say it too much. He's 100% right. And by hearing that feedback, I can make a really simple tweak to my speech. I can call it stupid once or twice in the very beginning, and then I can transition to calling it something that's very simple and powerful. Now that's going to help me reach more people with the 5-second rule. And here's what I want to say about feedback. Feedback is intense to receive. It really is. Because you are exposing yourself to critical opinions. It will make you feel very vulnerable. The way that I handle feedback and process it, I'm very clear about the things that I will receive feedback on, and I'm very clear about the things that I will not receive feedback on. And the reason why is, if you don't listen to any feedback at all, guys, you're never going to improve. You're not going to ever do anything new. So no feedback means nothing new. If you listen to everything that everybody says in terms of feedback, if you allow everybody to weigh in on everything, it's going to become so paralyzing that you will do nothing new. So the key with feedback is knowing yourself and knowing what you actually accept feedback on and knowing what you don't accept feedback on.
Many years ago, when I first met my mentor, and I was telling him about all these businesses that I had started, I said, hey, Alan, I started all these businesses and somehow, I don't know, man, I'm not making enough money, I'm struggling. I don't know why. My customers, they're like cheap, they're very difficult to deal with. And oh man, I don't know, the economy, it's kind of sucks. And I think I pay too much in taxes. I was rambling on and complaining and bitching about all these things. And he said, stop. I said, what? He said, stop. I said, what do you mean? He said, stop. He said, it's very simple, Dan. Let me teach you something. He said, if your business sucks, it's because as a business person, you suck. I said, what? No, I work hard. I said, I was very defensive. I was like, I learn and I try to do my best and try to serve my customers. He said, no, you suck as a business person. He said, if you got sales problem, it means you suck as a salesperson. If you got employee problem, it means it sucks as you're a manager and a business leader. It's very, very simple. He said, remember this, your business is always a reflection of you. Your business is always a reflection of you. Nothing more. So if you think about it, why most businesses fail? I think why most businesses fail is because the reason, the intent, most people, they start the businesses for the wrong reason. They start the business because they want to get out of a job. They start a business because they want to make money, of course. Nothing wrong with that. They start a business because they think maybe there's an opportunity. It sounds like it's easy way to make money. It's not. And it started for the wrong reason. Versus they see a need in the marketplace, there's a skill, there's expertise, there's some value they could bring to that particular industry, right? There's something that you could bring. So think about it. It's like think of starting a business like flying a plane. And you can't just say, well, I'm passionate, I have a great idea, let me fly that plane. Well, have you fly a plane before? No. Do you know how to fly a plane? No. Do you know where you're going? No. But it looks like fun. Let me get on a plane. What are the chances of you crashing? Very high. And that's why statistics shows 90% of small business fail in the first 5 years. Even the ones who survive after 5 years, most of them don't pass the $1 million mark. They're just kind of surviving. And that's why people go into business for the wrong reason, and they go into business without the proper training, without the skills. I could tell you when I had all those failures, when I started all these crazy businesses, and why they failed, it's not because the vehicle, it's because of me as a business person, that I didn't have the business acumen, I didn't have the business experience, I didn't know anything about leadership, marketing, sales, negotiation, raising capital, any of these skills I have today. So everything I did, it didn't work because I was a lousy business person. I sucked as a business person. But I learned from my mistakes, and that's the good thing about business. You could suck many, many, many years. When you get better, you learn from it, you suck less. And when you practice and you dust yourself out, you learn from mistakes, you suck even a little less. Until one day you wake up, you say, you know what, I don't suck no more. And one win in business can make up for a lot of losses. One win can make up for all your losses.
Self-improvement is the answer to whatever obstacle is staring you in the face right now. The only difference between you and greatness is the willingness to grow and improve. It's not talent, it's not smarts, it's the willingness to improve yourself. The difference between you and Tony Robbins is he has spent more time constantly improving himself than most people on the planet. Here's a guy who had multiple fathers growing up, had an abusive mother who at 17 he had to run away from home so he could become a janitor and never go to college. He then decided to be a success. He read 700 books in 7 years. He studied under mentors like Jim Rohn, and today he's the founder or owner of companies with over $6 billion in annual revenue. If Tony Robbins can go from being an abused janitor with no college education to being one of the most influential people in the world, why can't you? The difference is he made the investment to constantly improve himself, and you haven't yet at that level. So I look at my channel as an example, my YouTube channel, and I've learned so much over the past number of years in confidence, in growth, in abilities, in skills, by consuming the content, because I love the top 10 series and the Mentor Me series and the Espresso series. I make them for me, and then I share them with you, and thankfully you guys like them too, and I can build a business off of it and keep pumping out more content. But it helps me. I've grown, I've learned. And one of the biggest moments that helped me realize how much I've learned is when I signed a 3-year deal with Sage. I was working with Stephen Kelly, who is the CEO, and every month we'd be on a call. We'd be doing a hangout on my YouTube channel, answering questions from people. And I was driving with my dad, and I remember him asking me, how do you get the confidence to be on a call with Stephen Kelly and be seen as his equal all the time? And he wasn't asking me to put me down. He was asking me in genuine awe of, he was so happy for me that I was playing a bigger game. And it dawned on me that he was right. The Evan of 5 years ago wouldn't have been able to do that. The Evan of 5 years ago would have felt less than. The Evan of 5 years ago would have said, there's no way I'm capable of doing that. And then when I'd signed the deal, I felt like, it's great. I love Stephen, he's amazing, but I feel like I'm hanging out with Oprah and Kanye and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and these super successful people, and they're infiltrating my brain on a daily basis, right? A daily basis. 3 videos every single day on this channel. And so bit by bit, it pulls me up. Now I've recognized I still have a long way to go. I still have so much more to learn. I still need to believe in myself even more. And every time I consume more content, it allows me to grow my comfort zone a little bit more. And the funny thing is, all of these moments are little tiny incremental parts of your growth. I couldn't point you to one point in my past where I said, that was the moment that I changed. That was the moment that I had more confidence. But as I studied every day, I could look back 3 months, 6 months, a year and say, wow, I've really changed. I've really grown. I've really learned a lot. But in the daily, from today to yesterday, I'd say I didn't grow at all. And so sometimes on your journeys, you're trying to learn and get better. You may feel like the growth is really slow on a daily basis, but if you keep going, you keep investing, you keep learning, you keep seeking out mentors, you keep trying to get better and improve. Not every day will be amazing, but if you try every day to get better and learn, I can guarantee you that in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, when you look back of the person you've become compared to what you are right now, there'll be a big change. And that's because you continue to invest in yourself.
So even when it doesn't feel good, feedback can be a really, really good thing. But first, I want us to make a distinction between feedback and criticism, because I think that's important. Feedback is the energy or the return energy of what's put out. This means that feedback is information about or reactions to our state of being and our performance and our way of being in relationship. Feedback comes to us as a response or a reaction, or sometimes as comments or a review of what we do and how we show up at any given moment. And feedback has a purpose. The purpose of feedback is to provide us with guidance or direction that will serve as the influence for modification or change in our behavior and in our energy. So in other words, feedback is a cue that something we do or say or how we behave needs to change. That's all it is. Now that sounds pretty harmless, but here comes the challenge. Most feedback either feels or sounds critical, which means that it's going to trigger a toxic memory or a feeling, which then motivates us to discount the feedback we're receiving. You know, we can't even hear it. So what is criticism then? If feedback is criticism, what is criticism? Criticism is feedback that demoralizes, condemns, judges, or blames. It's feedback that is consciously or unconsciously offered to manipulate or control. That's the difference. Where feedback is offered to motivate, correction, or change, criticism is offered to manipulate and control. And in many, many cases, while what people offer as constructive criticism, what they want to give us, it actually criticizes us. And that's what leads to a mental or emotional shutdown, and we can lose the value of what's being offered because criticism is an offering. Now, here's the good news. All criticism is feedback. And here's the bad news. All criticism is feedback. What I mean is this: whether it's positive or negative, productive or unproductive, all feedback is telling you something you need to know about yourself. And what you hear and how you hear it has nothing to do with who's saying it. All feedback is about who you be and how you be, and it's bringing that to your awareness. There's something you need to change, beloved. Whether it is coming at you from your mother or your sister or your boss or your coworker or your partner, feedback is a source of information for self-improvement, and it can be received and used as the foundation for altering and changing your way of being or a specific course of behavior.
Nobody's born a CEO, so the job you learn it, and the challenge is you just don't know what your blind spots are, and so you know how to build. At least in my case, I grew up programming. I knew I could make the code work. We knew we could get people on Hacker News excited about it. We knew we could make our early users happy. But if you want to bring a company to scale, there's a lot more. The chessboard is a lot bigger than just building a good product, and you have to be able to make smart and fast decisions about what markets do we go into, our business models, competition, strategy. How do you build a team? How do you run a team? That's pretty tough when you've never done any of it. You don't really have a lot of context on those things. Don't even know that those are important.
So how did you learn those things?
I think the first thing you need is on the one hand, like a healthy paranoia around, like, okay, probably one of the most useful questions that I like to ask myself and still do is 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, when I look back on today, what will I wish I had been learning? Or what would I wish I had been doing? And so I think really taking it on yourself to be systematic about how do I train myself, what am I going to need to know. They say you go from coder to psychiatrist, which I found is totally true, or politician in the job, and then there are a lot of different points in between. And so,
and did you mostly figure this out yourself, or did you ask people, like, what am I going to need to be doing? What will I wish I had done in a year?
A little of everything.
Okay.
So reading was probably the single most valuable thing that I did.
Anything you'd recommend other people read?
Yeah, and so I think my favorite book on management is High Output Management by Andy Grove, which is kind of the Bible of how do you scale an organization. I mean, I have a very long list of recommendations, but The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker is really good. But basically what you're talking about is you need to have good judgment about a lot of different things. And sort of like, how do you, what that really is saying is like, how do you gain wisdom very quickly? And last book recommendation, Poor Charlie's Almanac by Charlie Munger is probably the best book on that that I've read, which is really about how do you build a bunch of mental models to sort of break down the complexity of the world and know when to use each. But reading is part of it, but then also having, you sort of think about that 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, having friends that are one step ahead, 2 steps ahead, 5 years ahead, and just sort of looking at the deltas between them.
If I want to do something, I find somebody that's already done it, and then I do exactly what they tell me. It's a simple rule to follow. I don't read novels. I don't watch movies. I'd watch documentaries or things like that where I can learn. I'm only interested in studying something that can cause me to become more of what I'm capable of being. See, I think we're all hardwired to do something really special with our life. And that's all I want to do. I'm really good at what I do. I could walk by a person in the hall and like that, I could tell them exactly what they're like. I could read their energy like a book. Everything goes on the inside, shows on the outside. See, we're gifted with faculties of the mind that the average person knows nothing about. You have intuition, the will, reason, imagination, perception, memory. That's what separates us from all the rest of forms of life. We go through school and never learn anything about it. Like you'll hear people say they have a bad memory. There's no such thing as a bad memory. Everybody has a perfect memory. It's just weak. They've never developed it. Our imagination. Your imagination is the most magnificent. Hill said it's the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful force the world's ever known. I can use my imagination to project myself into the future and bring the future into the present and start living there. You work from the imagination. You don't work to it. You work from it.
Backwards from the result.
Yeah.
You are all hopelessly average by birth. We all are. And that's the great news. Because the most important thing to understand about the human species, we are the ultimate adaptation machine. If you guys were paying attention, not too long ago, they sequenced the human genome and they realized that the human genome has 20,000 genes. And everybody, they thought that they were going to cure cancer, all the diseases, age-related disease, everything, type 1, type 2 diabetes was all going to be a thing of the past. We were going to have it figured out. And then we realized that an onion has more genetic diversity than we do. And how could that be? And so they're literally going, is this really possible? Do we misunderstand something? Like, how is it that an onion has more genetic diversity than we have? And somebody finally said, hey, maybe all this stuff that we've been referring to as junk DNA, maybe it actually plays a role. And then they began to realize that all that junk DNA that was outside of those 20,000 genes that we saw expressing themselves is what is called epigenetics. Now, if you've ever heard of epigenetics, that's amazing. You're way ahead. If you haven't heard of epigenetics, let it become one of the most important things in your life, because epigenetics is what has made us the most dominant species this planet has ever seen. It is the only thing that you need to know. It's what I call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is that you can learn anything. I don't need you to believe that you're good now. That doesn't matter. Who you are now is totally irrelevant. The only thing I want to know, who are you willing to become and what's the price you're willing to pay to get there? And that's what humans are designed to do. If you put us under stress, we can learn something new. We can get better.
Many of us have issues with productivity. Maybe we are overly productive, but we're feeling burnt out all the time, or we're not productive at all because we don't know where to start. I found personally, being in business for myself for the last 20 years, that I have been a little overly productive. I almost did too much, and I was constantly multitasking and making things happen and just moving so fast that ultimately I really burnt out. And I started feeling brain fog. I was feeling disoriented. I couldn't focus. I was feeling like, even though I for so many years was priding myself on the fact that I could get so much done at one time, I actually don't think I was being nearly as productive as I could have been. So I hit a bottom recently with this productivity overload, and I realized that I had to change my patterns. I had to change my ways. I was then blessed. I said a prayer. I said, I need some help with my brain fog, and I need some help with my productivity issue. And I, that day, got an email from the Dr. Oz show asking me to come on and do a segment with this lovely author and Dr. Mike Dow. And me and Mike had been in touch for many years, just because he had been an author. We were published by the same publishers. And Mike had written a book about brain fog. So that day, I'm like, thank you, universe. You're giving me exactly what I need. I go on Dr. Oz with Mike, and I'm backstage with him, and I'm like, listen, I'm feeling so chaotic, and I'm multitasking so much, and I feel like I've got brain fog, and I'm forgetting things. And he looked at me and says, how much are you doing at one time? And I said, oh, Mike, I'm doing 1,000,000 things at once. I have 1,000 tabs up on my screen. And he's like, these are big brain no-nos. And they're also productivity no-nos, is what he said. Because he said that the more I try to do and the more I try to multitask, the less I'm actually getting done. So he gave me a tip that I want to share with you that has changed everything for me. And his suggestion was to just do 5 things a day. To make a list of the 5 most important things that I need to do that day, and not do number 2 until I've completed number 1. And then once I complete number 1, move on to number 2, then on to number 3. And if I don't get through all 5 in one day, I'll just pick up the 5th the next day, or wherever I left off, I'll pick up the next day. And to really stick to that list and not move back and forth and not try to make 1,000,000 other things added on to that list, and just be really committed to that 5-task list. I did it. I started to just be very clear about the 5 things I was doing in a day. I told my team. I made a list in my base camp, which is where we keep all of our notes. And I made it really clear to myself, these are the only 5 things I'm doing throughout the day. As a result of making it super clear and conscious to myself that I was only going to do 5 things, I have been more productive. I have created more. I have been more intuitive. I have been more inspired, and I've been more creative.
I've got a special bonus clip from Gordon Ramsay on how to improve yourself that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, 3-point landing question time. Stop just watching videos. Take action in your life. Answer these 3 questions. Here we go. Question number 1. Where do you need to most improve yourself? Number 2, what are you going to do today on it? Today. And number 3, how will you schedule for success so it's part of your daily routine?
I was very fortunate to be taught with some of the best chefs anywhere in the world. And the most important lesson I learned was passing that knowledge on. And I always ask that amazing question, if you're such a hands-on chef, restaurateur, who does the cooking when you're not there? Well, it's the same people when I am there. There's no difference. So I have an unselfish way of teaching people to invest in their palate to get it as strong as mine. I try to say to them, it's lazy to copy. Anybody can copy. So take 25% of everything you've learned from other chefs and then put yourself on the plate. And over the years of experience, reduce me less and improve yourself. And that's the foundation to becoming a great chef.
Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.